Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Welcome to this video devoted to the works of Rene Guenon. Before we get into the video, I would like to ask everyone to like, subscribe, and share this video. And if you like the content on my channel, please do consider becoming a patron on the Patreon website, and the links are provided to all of that in the description. Rene Guenon is an extremely important figure. Those of you who are regular viewers of my channel will know that I did a podcast on Guenon a couple of years ago on Rene Guenon and the Kali Yuga and various other things, and I followed that up with some other videos. And right now I have a series going devoted to Rene Guenon's most important and probably one of his most difficult books, namely The Reign of Quantity and the Signs of the Times. So in this video, I would like to present what I think are his most fundamental writings. I do have all of his published works that are available in the English language in 23 volumes in the SP Sophia Perennis imprint. But there are some basic books which I think if you want to acquaint yourself with Guenon, you really have to read. And I think that there is probably not necessarily a right way and a wrong way to go about reading Guenon's books, but there is an easy way and a difficult way in reading Guenon books. So the difficult way is just to start at random. So I think the first thing that a person should do if they're absolutely new to Rene Guenon is to acquaint themselves with his life. And we are very fortunate that we have a biography by his publisher, Paul Chacornac, entitled The Simple Life of Rene Guenon, also available through Sophia Perennis. This is a very short book, as you can see. It's really thin, but it's extremely important. It's just about 100 pages long. It has information about Guenon's life that we wouldn't have known otherwise, because he was very, very, very humble. He was not interested in personality or creating a personality cult around himself, so he was extremely quiet. He was extremely reticent about the facts of his own biography, and didn't really talk about it or leave behind an autobiographical document. I do know that he has hundreds and hundreds of letters because he had a very, very wide-ranging correspondence. I don't know if those will ever be published. At any rate, so that's an excellent biography. There is another biography of Guenon called Rene Guenon and the Future of the West, The Life and Writings of a 20th Century Metaphysician, also published by Sophia Perennis, but this one is by Robin Waterfield. Also a rather short book. This is maybe 130 pages approximately. And both of these are relatively inexpensive. You can get them and acquaint yourself with his life. You can also watch the videos, which I've done so far. I think the most accessible book, really where you should start in reading Guenon, is his book, The Crisis of the Modern World. Now, this is really important because it's so prophetic, considering that Guenon was born in 1886 and only died in 1951. And he saw so deeply into the malaise of the modern historical moment, so to speak. And this book is full of insights. It's very accessible and it's very easy to read. Now, Guenon was, above all things, a metaphysician. He was a extremely spiritual man. One might characterize him, to use the terminology of ancient Gnosticism, as a pneumatic, a spiritual person, as opposed to a merely psychic or hylic individual, to use the threefold category there. That, he was not involved, he was not really concerned with material life and materialism. So he is very much a pneumatic, a spiritual sort of individual, very much concerned with integral metaphysics, which he saw as part of tradition with a capital T that goes across all different genuine religious and spiritual traditions in the world. He offers us an excellent overview of that, let's call it that kind of integral metaphysics, in a book devoted to Hinduism. And that's his book, Introduction to the Study of Hindu Doctrines. I have all of these books, by the way, in hardcover. In the Sophia Perennis editions, they are also all available in paperback, and the paperback is naturally a lot cheaper, but it's also sturdy. I have, by way of example, a copy of The Reign of Quantity as a paperback to show you here. I also have it in hardcover. So this is not bad paper. It's sturdy. It's not going to fall apart. So you don't have to feel bad if you don't want to spend the extra money on a hardcover. This is almost as durable, as far as a paperback goes. It's a pretty solid paperback. So you don't have to have any reservations about thinking, okay, well, I'm going to have to buy these in paperback. They're going to fall apart. They're pretty good. I have my copy I have two copies of Introduction to the Study of Hindu Doctrines, and the first one I have came out way before the Sophia Prentice edition. It's an Indian edition. By Munshi Ram Manohar Lal Publishers, and I'm just, this is the one I read, so I know this one well because it has my notes in it. And what I can tell you is that, the first 180 pages or so, some of the pages are stuck together here. So part 1, preliminary questions, and part 2, the general character of Eastern thought, in this edition extends to about page 174. Now, I think in the new edition, that would be probably the first 180 pages or so. The general characteristics, so that goes to 114. Yeah, so you only need to read part 1 and 2 in the beginning. In other words, from page 1 to 118 in the new edition. And that will give you a whole overview of this understanding he has of metaphysics. But in the case of Rene Guénon's metaphysics, he saw the most pure expression of this ancient and integral metaphysics in the doctrine of the Vedanta, which is one of the 6 systems of so-called Hindu or Vedic thought. And he wrote a book on that as well, which is Man and His Becoming According to the Vedanta. So in terms of a sequence, I would start with the crisis of the modern world, digest that carefully, then the first 118 pages of Introduction to the Study of Hindu Doctrines, and digest that, then read the rest of the book, and then go to Man and His Becoming According to the Vedanta. You could even stop there and you'd have a really good understanding of Guénon, and you could leave it for the next 6 months or a year and then come back to the rest of the books, because you really need to digest these things. Metaphysics is something which is not learned in a day. It is a continuous kind of engagement, if you like, and pondering and deep thinking about the fundamental questions of manifestation of human existence. Another very important dimension you have to understand about Rene Guénon is that he was deeply immersed in mathematics. He had a formal training in the mathematics of his day. And so he was very interested in the symbolism of numbers in the Pythagorean sense, as well as geometry. And one of his most profound meditations on the symbolism that we find in space and geometry is his book, The Symbolism of the Cross. A lot of people may think this has something to do with Christianity. It actually does not. It is true that Guénon was raised in an observant and strict Catholic family. However, he died as a Muslim. He entered Islam. It's not really accurate to speak of conversion in the sense that someone like, Malcolm X converted to Islam, or a more contemporary example, Hamza Yusuf, for example. And again, not to, you can go and, it's well known why the story of Malcolm X and why he accepted Islam, and, Hamza Yusuf has videos and so forth, but at the same time, one can't jump inside another person's head, so I don't want to misrepresent those guys, but I'm simply trying to say that for Guénon, the decisive factor was initiation, and he was looking for a living tradition of initiation, and he was of the view that you had to follow all of the outward laws and rules of a tradition, what's called the exoteric dimension of a tradition. You couldn't just follow the inner, the esoteric, and he found that initiation in Islam, and so he became Muslim. At any rate, so the symbolism of the cross has nothing to do with Christianity. It has to do with the symbolism of space, of rotation, cross in the sense of, perpendicular, two perpendicular lines. And this is a very, very profound book. It is a short book, but it requires a very slow and careful reading. Then there is his magnum opus, The Reign of Quantity and the Signs of the Times. This is a difficult book, but it is extremely important, and it is without a doubt, in my view and the view of many, his most important book. This is the last book that was published in his lifetime. Other writings did appear, but they appeared posthumously, that is to say, after his death. I won't speak too much more about this book. Simply, I'll say that if you are really interested in this book, then I invite you to tune into my video series on this. I have recorded, I think, there's 6 videos. They may not all be available yet, but so far I've recorded those, and I plan to finish the whole book so that in the end there will be a total of 41 videos. There's 40 chapters in the book, 41 because there was an introductory video dealing with the introduction and so forth. So I would invite you to tune into those, but this is an extremely important book, and really I think that the study of Rene Guenon, anything else of his you read, really has to build up to reading this. 2 more titles, and then I will conclude. I already made the observation of the importance and centrality of mathematics in the thought of Rene Guenon. And so without a doubt, his most difficult book. You could say that this is one of his most difficult, but the most difficult book, without a doubt, least accessible, is the Metaphysical Principles of the Infinitesimal Calculus. Unless you have yourself studied calculus, this book will not really mean much to you. And when I say studied calculus, I don't mean you studied it like an engineer or a physicist. I mean, you actually had to take a proper course in calculus where they actually prove the theorems and so forth. And so you have to have an understanding of what is meant in modern mathematics by infinity as well as the infinitesimal. The infinity, the indefinitely large; the infinitesimal, the indefinitely small. And so this is really an extended study and exploration from, again, the point of view of tradition with a capital T, of the notion of the infinite. For Rene Guenon, the absolute infinite is only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the supreme principle, God. And other than that, all other infinities in the plural are potential. And in fact, he prefers the term indefinite, the numerical indefinite. So this is a difficult read, even if, and mind you, I actually have a Bachelor of Science degree in mathematics from Purdue University. And even then, I found this to be challenging, but it is an extremely rewarding book to read if you have studied calculus. So this is his most difficult and probably least accessible book, because of this whole idea that you have to really, know something about modern mathematics. The last book on the list is his Symbols of Sacred Science. This is a book that you can sort of skip around in and read whichever chapters strike your fancy. Rene Guenon was a very profound scholar of ancient symbolism, and he has very wide-ranging articles in this book. So, for example, he has a section on symbolic weapons, thunderbolts, the symbolism of horns, the cave in the world egg, the eye of the needle, this phrase from the Bible, the 7 rays of the rainbow, symbolism of the dome, word and symbol, the language of the birds, mantiq al-tayr, that's a phrase from the Quran, the triple precinct of the Druids, the guardians of the Holy Land, the tetractys and the square of 4. So there's a lot of information in this book. And again, you can read these articles, these papers, more or less independently of one another. There's a total of 75 studies on all sorts of symbolic ideas from tradition with a capital T. So that's a lot of books, but that's what I think are probably the most fundamental writings of Guenon. There will be people who will disagree, but I'm trying to just distill it down to the bare minimum. And indeed, if you don't have a lot of time and you just want to get a quick understanding of Guenon, the crisis of the modern world, you can't go wrong with that. I would say that if there's only one book that you read of Rene Guenon, then read this one, The Crisis of the Modern World. And then if you find that to be useful, then naturally you can go forward. And of course there are the 2 biographies I already mentioned. So those are my suggestions for those of you who want to start your study of Rene Guenon. And once again, if you haven't done so already, please do take a look at my video series on the reign of quantity and the signs of the times. Thank you so much for watching.